I think the community's going to be stunned.
And this is going to be a tremendous asset to the city's future.
It's at the gateway to the downtown area, and I think it sets the tone. The downtown Phoenix is alive, it's exciting, it's new, it's fresh, it's for families and for people of all ages.
I don't see this as an end point. I see it very much as a beginning.
I think people in the future are going to be able to look back on this time at the end of the 20th century as the moment when Phoenix really began to put itself on the world stage as a major city with some major cultural facilities and artifacts in it, and this is clearly one of them. And we now have a superblock right on the very edge of the old town.
For the past few years, people driving by 7th Street in Washington have witnessed an incredible transformation. Some call it an urban renaissance, others the gateway to Phoenix. But it all started with a vision for downtown and the preservation of Heritage Square.
We really were one of the first redevelopment projects downtown in 1980, beginning with the Rawson House and the rest of the block.
It was built in 1895 by Dr. Lee Roland Rawson and his wife Flora, and it took 6 months to build and $7,500. And it took 6 years and $750,000 to restore.
The city then proceeded to buy the rest of the homes at Heritage Square. All but the 1881 carriage house are original to the site.
So when our visitors come, they'll have museums, restaurants, and shops, and they'll have a feeling of the turn-of-the-century living.
And I think it's important that we did preserve it because we have lost so much of the original building form of the community. And here they have been converted to a variety of educational and recreational uses, which are complemented by the new museums here that are building upon the tradition which has been set.
With preservation underway, the city could now move forward with its downtown plan, and Heritage Square played a key role. Its name would evolve into Heritage and Science Park, and it would be home for 2 new museums. But to make this happen, the city needed financial support and a commitment from the community.
I'm a teacher, I'm an educator, and I found for years, I had taught for 12 years before this was started, so it was a golden opportunity for me to combine what I thought was needed here with what I knew how to do.
It was important to me that we add museums and cultural facilities for the next generation to enjoy.
The need from the community was there, and an upcoming bond election led by former Mayor Terry Goddard would provide the financial support the city needed.
I think what we're talking about doing in Phoenix on the 19th of April of '88 is nothing less than a major step forward for this community, one which will have revolutionary consequences if we can push it through.
But getting a $1 billion bond election passed required countless hours from volunteers and strategic planning.
I don't know if everyone remembers, but at some point in time, virtually everybody in the business community and in the arts and entertainment and cultural community were sporting buttons that said, don't forget to vote yes on 5 and 8. And 5 and 8 were the 2 propositions that dealt with arts and culture in the city.
Everyone was so cooperative. There wasn't any competition for who was going to get funded or who wasn't. It was a one for all and all for one.
The hard work paid off. Citizens voted for an unprecedented bond election that allotted $1.1 billion for capital improvement projects. It was the largest city bond package approved on a single ballot in U.S. history.
The passage of the '88 bond election really was a turning point for the city of Phoenix. It was a city of well over 1 million people that had facilities that were built for a population of about 200,000. So it brought Phoenix up to standard of where other communities were across the nation.
I think those of us that are here today really have to thank the visionaries that made this come about, because we are constantly recognized as the mechanism for which a downtown can be completely revitalized.
I have to commend the voters. They probably did a tremendous act of imagination about what the future would look like. I'm not sure they have this precise details in their mind, but they overall picture a structure of a city that functions smoothly and that has lots to offer, and I hope that they'll get even more than they imagined.
Proposition 5 gave $61 million for the Phoenix Art Museum, Phoenix Theater, restoration of the Orpheum Theater, and a new History Museum and Science Center. The city would build and own the facilities, and the nonprofit groups would operate them. The board of directors for both the Phoenix Museum of History and the Arizona Science Center were vital in moving the museums forward. But the Science Center also faced the challenge of raising $17.6 million for exhibits, public programs, a giant screen theater, and planetarium.
The success of the fundraising was based primarily on the fact that almost every major institution in town agreed to do more than what could have reasonably been expected of them. And if they hadn't, we really wouldn't have had a very good chance of success.
The fundraising campaign was a monumental effort by the Science Center staff and board, and the community rallied to the cause. But getting the museums built also required a great deal of teamwork, compromise, and dedication on everyone's part.
Everyone had to understand everybody else's position, opinion, and role. And everybody had to realize there had to be a lot of compromising.
It was more exciting than it was difficult.
It was the fact that it came together so well, I think is quite fortuitous.
It was now time to break ground. But before construction could begin, an archaeological excavation was needed.
Northland Research was hired to do the archaeological investigation of the site.
Not only did we find prehistoric remains, but we also found some fairly significant historic remains. Right underneath the parking lot were remains of the original town site of Phoenix.
Among the finds was a residence of John Y.T. Smith, an early mover and shaker in Phoenix history. Ironically, one of his homes was discovered beneath the Phoenix Museum of History. This presented a unique opportunity to develop a significant historical find within the design of the new museum. Turn-of-the-century bricks excavated from the site were used to create the History Museum's logo, a prehistoric symbol for the sun. There was also evidence of two Hohokam occupations, one dating back to 200 AD.
The Heritage Square location was a former Hohokam village we call Pueblo Patricio. And Pueblo Patricio was very interesting compared to other Hohokam sites in that it was apparently one of the very first villages occupied by the Hohokam in the Salt River Valley. In fact, maybe the first house ever built by human beings in the valley may have occurred right at that location. So I like to say that the Hohokam were aware of the value of that property, much like we are today.
Archaeologists weren't the only ones uncovering these ancient treasures. The public was also invited to get involved.
The Ruin Your Day public program was designed to provide the public at lunchtime with the information that we got. We wanted to make them feel a part of it.
The program was a great success, and in 1995 received a Governor's Award for Educational Excellence. But while the site was being surveyed, plans were well underway for the new museums, with the city's Engineering and Architectural Services Department at its core.
Engineering was responsible for both the design and construction activities.
We were fortunate to have one site with two projects. Therefore, we could hire just one construction or development manager to be an extension of staff on the site, and they were responsible to manage both general contractors for the History Museum and also the Science Center.
We recommended to the city that it be separated into two projects so that they could be run concurrently or separately with two separate general contractors to make it easier for the city to monitor and to coordinate.
The design contract for the Phoenix Museum of History and parking garage was awarded to the local firm of Langdon Wilson Architecture, the same firm who designed the award-winning Phoenix City Hall.
Well, we were master planners for the entire Heritage Square projects. One of the important things to do was to find ways that the two projects could share all the infrastructure but not compete with each other.
We were blessed also early on in seeing early studies by Antoine Prédoc for the Science Center. So to create an interesting dialogue between the buildings, we tried to open it up and to create a very transparent see-through side of the building that faces the Science Center and the plaza that tries to unite them.
We really were trying to understand what a museum of the future would be like. And although it contains our history, the idea of something that bridged into the future was really important. So the entire vocabulary of this museum is contemporary.
To me, it says, here I am, I've arrived. It is such a sleek, delicate building. It draws people towards it, and it just says, this is new Phoenix, and until they walk inside, they don't know that it really has old Phoenix inside it.
You'll notice that everything on our side of the project is very simple, very quiet. It's landscaping and it's a stairway. You'll also notice that when you walk along Monroe, that our building is set back. You're able to see the tower of Rossin House from a block away. We never did anything to obscure it.
And there's a lot of wonderful design here that will last the test of time. The staff and I both feel every day when we come to work, you can't help but smile when you come in through the door. It's just an absolute pleasure.
Visitors take a trip back in time. There are no computers here. Kids play games the old-fashioned way, and people of all ages delight in hands-on activities.
We love it.
We're still looking.
We're still looking.
We want to bring the kids to show them what it was like, hundreds of years ago. So they're having fun.
There's a lot to see, and you definitely can't take it all in one trip.
They really see the book coming alive, and so it just helps the teachers so much.
We don't have many architectural remnants of our history, and so this is one of the few places where they can come and actually see artifacts and read about people and hear stories about what Phoenix really was like.
Finding through the soldier's family.
There's a 1905 Davenport steam engine and the first motorized bicycle ever invented. But parking wasn't an issue in the 20s as it is today, and that's why a parking garage was incorporated into the museum's design.
The hardest thing of all was to deal with the fact that the garage is 12 times the size of the museum.
The requirements for the parking garage was that it be an 800-car structure. Because of the site limitations, the designers were required to design a 5-story structure.
One area of our department provides a graphic display that allows us to make some good decisions. And when we saw graphically that the 5-story garage essentially dwarfed the 20,000 square foot history museum, it just proportionally didn't look right.
But putting the parking structure underground became a tremendous challenge. Buried directly beneath the garage were U.S. West communication cables linking the East and the West Valley, and also national defense lines that needed to be relocated.
What we ultimately did was we put 2 layers below grade and 2 layers above grade, and the museum actually slides over a portion of the below grade parking.
It's a whole face of the parking structure as it faces both to Monroe and into Heritage Square is in fact a series of terraced gardens with walkways through those gardens, and I think that was a really powerful and good move.
The garden theme is continued throughout the pedestrian mall that connects the square.
We've made 6th Street and Adams Street into a pedestrian mall with a focus on use for festivals. We wanted to have it a nice place to stroll through during regular touring, but then also to be a nice place for events.
As the project proceeded and grew and developed, new situations arose that required our responding to them and with them.
Among those were the redesign of the landscaping to include exterior solar oasis exhibits and the Percent for Arts project, the Sun Catchers.
It's a marvelous example of sort of a combination of an interactive science exhibit and art because it was designed by 2 artists.
My wife and I have a company called Sonic Architecture, and we design interactive sculptures and environments. In the case of Phoenix here, we created the Sun Catchers, which is an interactive wind-driven sculpture, wind and sun-driven, for the Arizona Science Center. So the sun catchers change color as the sun hits the veins from different angles. Also, the sun is what creates wind, and these are wind-driven musical instruments.
Living with the sun and the mysteries of life are explored throughout the Science Center. Its goal from the beginning was to get people excited about science. And for those involved, it's been a process that spanned nearly 20 years.
In 1978, the Junior League formed a committee, studied science centers nationally, determined there was a need for one here, and got the league to give $100,000 to that. And then after 3 years, the Junior League brought in the community.
In 1984, the Museum of Science and Technology opened its doors at the corner of 2nd Street and Adams. What was originally intended to be a pilot project ended up being home to the museum for nearly 13 years.
And then we got so excited we weren't even going to do it halfway. We wanted to do something international, which I really think this has become.
The Science Center would be state-of-the-art, and it needed a design team that could deliver. Antoine Predock of New Mexico was chosen along with the local firm of Conoyer Hedrick. Predock had already won international recognition for his design of ASU's Nelson Fine Arts Center.
One of the things that's really very special about Predock is that he is both fascinated by the ancient cultures of the Southwest and thoroughly enjoys the manifestations of 20th and hopefully 21st century cultures.
The building has, I hope, a timeless aspect which collapses time present and time past and future time. It's as timeless as the landscape that inspires many aspects of it.
Predock's design for the Science Center began with a 20-foot collage.
The collage that I made has that sense of silhouette, sense of window rocks, openings through, that became openings through a building.
He then works with clay, creating three-dimensional clay models that are close in scale to the completed design.
There was a translation into a kind of journey through the building, an analogous journey to landscape where one would encounter peaks, valleys, buttes, mesas, and go into the earth, into the sky.
I think that embodiment of both the sort of embedding in the past and the soaring of that fin to the future is the very secret of the success of this building. It is definitely a building of the 20th century and unashamedly so.
The Science Center was designed with people in mind, so it was to be interactive. It was to create a passage from the north to the south of Heritage Park or Heritage Square so that you didn't need to walk around the building, you could literally go over it.
I just love concrete. I've used it in so many of my projects. It has been a material that, for me, has great power and permanence. There's a neutrality about the color of the materials, so that the sun itself can play upon them. If any of the colors were overtly one color or another, you wouldn't have that modification by the sun so wonderfully as you have with these rather neutral colors. It will make a great ruin sometime in the future. I hate to think about that with a new building opening, but I think that good buildings should make great ruins.
The magnitude of this project has always been massive, and that was the design from Antoine Predock.
This particular project may be the longest project other than the Suns Arena that we've ever done. It's a special project. It took a long time to build. It's definitely a labor of love.
I think people will always look at this building and think we had lots of courage to put up a building that's this much of an architectural statement in downtown Phoenix.
More than 14,000 cubic yards of concrete were used in the construction of the building. The same amount could pave a 9-mile road. The peak that soars into the sky is 9 stories high. It's covered with 4x8 sheets of specially treated aluminum, creating the illusion of the peak dissolving into the sky. Below ground, more than 1.2 million feet of wire and cables run through the building.
Both the general contractors, both Suncorp and D.L. Withers, should be commended for running safe projects. As a matter of fact, Suncorp received an accommodation from the Arizona Industrial Commission for no accidents on this project.
Architecturally, it's 120,000 square feet, but unlike an airport hangar, which is rectangular and pretty predictable, here you have many turns and surprises at every bend. It takes a while to get familiar with where to go next. We worked very closely with the Science Museum staff. They had a clear understanding and the expertise to know the program space that they needed.
Well, I see a very interesting building. It's
fresh and it's kind of raw, and it takes, even though it's a piece of art, it sort of takes a backdrop to the animation inside, which comes from the science and comes from the people enjoying the science. So I see it as a very lovely canvas on which our activities will unfold.
There are more than 350 hands-on interactive exhibits, all geared to help people better understand science and the world around them.
Our goals have been to have things be hands-on and to let people learn through experience, and that's what we're really seeing today, is that they're really excited about having that opportunity.
You know, look over here.
It's rad, it's awesome. Why? Because they have like a whole bunch of experiments and everything, and it's a lot of hands-on activities and everything. It's really cool.
So much of what we can do in the classroom, or we can't do in the classroom, we can bring them here and show them.
It shows you a lot of neat stuff that you would like never known before.
You can see the high technology that you've implemented. It's great. I think I'll be back here many, many times.
With the opening of the Science Center particularly, we will be bringing 500,000 school kids a year from around the state into downtown. That's not only important to them from an educational standpoint, but it's important to downtown because that's the next generation of visitors to downtown.
The Science Center not only teaches how to live with the sun, but uses energy-saving technologies to run by.
We have 3 cooling towers, and they are used to cool or push cool air into some outdoor spaces, while at the same time providing a sort of a mysterious science project.
The Arizona Science Center is innovative. It's cool. But more than anything, it's a fun place to visit, especially the iWorks movie theater and the planetarium. The iWorks Theater is a 285-seat large format movie theater that features the only iWorks projection system in the state. The giant screen is 5 stories high. It required a highly specialized crew to install it.
It's a specialized job. It's coordination more than anything else, getting everybody to do everything at the right time. It takes approximately 8 to 10 people to put a screen up this size. Until you've seen a movie on a screen this size, you haven't seen a movie.
The 870 projection system runs at up to 30 frames per second, has a very large film frame, which gives very clear and intense resolution, brightness, combined with these high-intensity sound system. It really puts the audience into the picture.
Just across the hall, visitors travel through space in the Dorrance Planetarium, featuring the Digistar projector.
The real power of the Dorrance Planetarium is the mixture of elements that we can bring together. The Digistar is essentially a big computer monitor. We can take an image from any number of computer sources and display it on the dome. Sometimes that's a star field, sometimes it's a DNA molecule, but we have the opportunity to fly into all of these objects. We can combine the Digistar to react immediately to whatever the audience wants to have happen. You can chart your own course through the solar system.
One of the main goals of the Science Center is to inspire the next generation of kids to identify with the way science and technology take apart the world. So we think that we have a wonderful tool for inspiring this kind of attention and excitement and positive associations in young people with science.
This is the last project from the '88 Cultural Bond election, and we're very, very pleased with the results.
What's really wonderful is to see that everything that people said was going to be there is there. All of the buildings that were promised are built now. It's just, it's fantastic.
The city of Phoenix is a very adventurous city in this country and in the world at this moment, in terms of the kinds of buildings that have been done recently.
There is no other city currently that is building public buildings of such significance in the community. And I think because of Phoenix's size, especially downtown Phoenix, its impact is enormous and will be viewed very positively in the future. And it continues. We're still building more.
We are thrilled that that there are finally thousands of people here enjoying this wonderful park.
Phoenix is definitely rebuilding its downtown. The culture is there. It's obvious now here in the last couple of years that we have arrived.
This will be a major focal point to bringing people to the center of the city.
We're in the middle of a golden decade that I think was only matched in the late 20s and early 30s.
I think it turned out wonderful. It'll be a real destination place.
This is the landmark that gives you a cue as to what Phoenix is going to be in the next century.
This is a wonderful space, and I think it's going to be used daily and nightly for a very long time to come.